Hey, fearless content creators, I'm Demetria and I am your friendly content strategist. And today I want to help you with something that I think is really important, especially if you are thinking of starting your podcast or if you already run a podcast. I'm going to talk about storytelling just a little bit. We're going to give you a few tips on how to tell stories that build a connection with your audience. So I've been podcasting for 20 years now, and one of the things that keeps me going is just the idea of being able to help people. I just love being an encouragement and a support system for those who decide to take time out of their schedules to click subscribe and listen. And so I feel like part of making things easy for me to share with my audience is to be a storyteller, to be able to share what my life is and be authentic and be vulnerable with you guys. So on a podcast, it's even easier because a lot of the times I don't do video podcasts. So I'm sitting behind a microphone, no video, nobody watching me, and I feel freer to talk. And so I may share a lot more on a podcast than I would on a video just because I feel more comfortable. And part of that comfortability is being able to share my story. So not only do I like to share tips and tactics and techniques and step-by-step how-to tutorials and things like that, but I also just like to share my stories because that's what makes me human and that's how I make a human connection with someone else. So I'm going to share with you how to do that. And the first tip I have for you is to share relatable experiences. So whatever your niche is, I want you to think about what your audience's pain points are, and you have to put yourself in their shoes and think about a relatable experience that you've had where you felt that same pain point and relate on that level. So how did you feel? That's how they feel, right? So start to talk through that and how you're getting through that process of feeling that way. What were your solutions and what made you arrive to those solutions? But talk about the journey along the way, the ups and the downs and the ins and the outs and all of the stuff. That's what your audience wants to hear. They want to hear your bumps along the road. They don't just want to hear that you made your first 6 figures, in your business. They want to know, like, how did you get there? And what are some of the lessons you've learned and some of your pitfalls and some of your mistakes you've made so that they can learn from those lessons and they feel not only that you're helping them to avoid the things that you've had to go through, but it's helping them to connect to you on a human level. So you're not like this guru that's just giving them advice, but not sharing the how, because maybe you've arrived, but how did you arrive? So I think that's what your listeners and your viewers oftentimes want to hear on a podcast. My second tip for you is to add emotion. Don't be afraid to be emotional. And I don't mean that you have to cry. I mean that if you want to cry, that's fine, because if that's part of how you express yourself on your podcast, that's fine. But what I mean is be open to sharing your emotions. So if you feel joyful or giddy or excited, or if you feel sad, or if you feel a little down, allow your emotions to shine through in your voice as you are sharing your story with your audience. Again, there's that human connection. There's an impact you're making when you can connect on an emotional level. So we're not this monotone, bringing the facts only on our podcast type of thing. We are wanting to show the emotion of a human. Nowadays, when it's so easy to let AI take over everything, I think it's important now more than ever to be as in touch with our human emotions as possible and connect on a deep, meaningful level. So if you're feeling like laughing, then laugh. If you feel like crying, then cry. If you want to share an aha moment and it's just resonating with you so much that it's coming out in your vocal expressions, all the better. That's what we want. And your listeners are going to be hooked because they want to hear the human side of you, and it helps them to connect with you. I'm not saying fabricate your emotions or try to be more emotional than you really are. Be real, be factual, be honest, but whenever you can make that connection, do it. It's going to help you out so much in your podcast. Trust me. In many of my podcasts, I have shared my journey with my audience. So in my homeschool podcast, I would share my ups and downs with homeschooling my kids and what it felt like teaching, and on days I didn't feel like teaching, and on days I felt sick and I homeschooled through illnesses, and days that I was excited to homeschool but just didn't have all the necessary tools that I needed, and how I came about getting those curriculum and getting what I needed for my kids, and maybe taking on extra jobs and doing entrepreneurial things in order to afford to homeschool, because it is a privilege to be able to live that lifestyle. And so I was using all of these personalized stories to hopefully make a connection with my audience. And I do think it worked. I really do, because I got so much feedback over the years how the podcast was meaningful to their families. And so I feel honored that I was able to enter into the lives of homeschool families through their ears, being able to capture their attention by them deciding to subscribe to my podcast and listen every single week when I was recording every week. Of course, now I don't record there often because I'm not homeschooling, but at that time, it's something I was committed to, and I created that content weekly, and it was a blessing not only to them, and they did tell me that it blessed them and it helped them, but it was a blessing to me to be able to share my journey. And it was kind of therapeutic, to be quite honest. And so that's the other thing about podcasting. Once you get started, you'll feel like, this might be some therapy for me, right? Because especially if you start doing interviews, you might feel that your conversations with your guests may be actually answering your problems and helping you to figure some things out that you weren't thinking of before. You might get some aha moments during a guest interview. So podcasting is really, really cool, but it starts with being open to making that kind of connection with your audience. It's not going to feel good at first when you only have 0 or 1 listener and you're making a connection with, it feels like nobody, but you have to remember that there is somebody on the other end that is downloading that episode and listening to you. So you're making an impact on that one person, and eventually that will improve, your numbers will grow, and you'll have more people to impact. So make a connection, be emotional, be human, be real. And lastly, I think it's a great idea to end with a lesson and wrap up your shows with some type of a takeaway, something that helps to inspire or motivate or teach your audience. So give them kind of a well-rounded package of the show. What did it help them to do? What did it help them to facilitate in their life? And give that to them. I think that's what they're looking for. So if they have a takeaway, they can bring that into their lives and use it, and it's practical to them. So those are my 3 tips for you for telling stories that build connections with your audience. They're very simple tips. And as far as digging deeper into storytelling, there's so many resources out there. And just remember that your stories have the power to connect. So don't hold your stories back. Release them and let them be a part of your content when you provide any type of content, your podcast, your videos, whatever you're offering. Just don't hold back on your stories, because they are going to be the things that make the connection with your audience. I want you to take a look at a couple of free items that I have for you in addition to a course that I'm selling. My free items are the Fearless Podcast Launch and also the Launch Confidently Podcasting Checklist. So these are things that you can download for free. In addition to that, I have a course that I've created called the Podcast Planner Playbook, and I'm going to load that below for you so that you can access it. It's going to help you out with a lot with your podcasting. So I can't wait to talk to you guys again next time. And until then, enjoy your content creation. See you later.